You're listening to the Health and Happiness Podcast with Travis Kemper and
Lauren Maxwell. Each episode, we share easy to implement strategies to improve your health, happiness, and overall quality of life. Anyone holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. Thomas Paine. How's it going, Travis?
Well, skiing on Saturday didn't go so well. For some reason, my knee immediately felt unstable. So I did one run and went home. Yeah, it was disappointing. But then we took Duke snowshoeing Sunday, and he did well with training out in the snow. Yeah, so that was exciting. Yeah, he did really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but we have Duke today, so, any disturbances, are possible. How's it going, Lauren?
It's going great. I'm enjoying spring break so far and have been reading and writing a lot in my free time. I'm pretty sure I've talked a lot about how much I love writing on the podcast, probably more than once. But most of the time, I write to journal my thoughts and feelings or to recount memories so that I can remember them forever. That's why my memory is very, very good. It's because I write it down. But sometimes I enjoy just creatively writing, like writing stories. And so that's kind of been my spring break project, was to start writing a new story. So I stayed up way too late last night writing a wave of creativity, but I honestly had so much fun, so it was worth it.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about today, Travis?
Well, I was listening to our last episode, the last episode that just came out, about schools, and I wanted to make a quick point of clarification. I said something to the effect of our poor education system causes our thriving prison system. I should have said our poor education system may cause our thriving prison system. I know they're correlated and there may be a causal relationship, but I didn't look into that research because we were focusing on the education piece. Mm-hmm. This was mostly a point that popped into my head when we were recording. So it wasn't a fully developed idea at the time. I didn't come up with it before we started recording, and I was just like, oh. So anyway, so I just wanted to make that point of clarification. And that's going to lead us into our next episode, because today we are going to talk about the importance of accountability. We live in a society that, unfortunately, at least as I see it, I would call it a blame society. If you listen to the news, you listen to politics, they're always blaming everyone else for everything that is determined to be wrong by them. Nobody's taking accountability for anything, and it just perpetuates down the line. If our leaders are blaming everybody, we're probably more likely to blame people. Mm-hmm. So today, the episode is talking about the accountability, the benefits of accountability, and taking accountability for the good and the bad in your life, which is kind of how we ended the last episode about imposter syndrome.
Yeah, because that's where I need to take accountability, is for the good.
Yes, you do need to take accountability for the good, because you have earned it, Lauren.
Thanks,
so, Lauren, what is accountability?
Accountability is accepting responsibility for your actions and being willing to own the outcomes of your choices, decisions, and actions. So there are two different types of accountability that I didn't actually realize until we were doing the research, but I thought it was pretty important based on some of the stuff that comes up. There's controlled accountability, which is the expectation of feeling accountable to a person that gives you a sense of pressure or shame. So the example that I read about this was if you're taking a piano lesson and your piano teacher basically is gets really mad at you if you don't practice, and kind of shames you if you don't practice and makes you feel super guilty. And so then you hold yourself accountable to him to practice because you're afraid of being shamed again. So that's controlled accountability. Autonomous accountability, on the other hand, is the expectation of feeling accountable that causes a behavioral change for positive reasons. So again, for example, using the piano teacher, if your piano teacher, if you have a really positive relationship with him, you want to practice piano because you want to be able to like show him how good you're doing and feel like proud of yourself for being able to like play a piece that you were supposed to practice and get good feedback from him. Autonomous accountability shares more volitional aspects than controlled accountability. It's more like kind of like a partnership as compared to like, I'm holding my hands up in a vertical sense, but you can't see that if you're just listening. It's more like, I don't know, what am I trying to say, Travis?
I don't know exactly, but controlled accountability to me sounds like you're forcing me to be accountable
Right.
versus autonomous accountability is like I want to be accountable to something. So from a patient's perspective, if I always assign exercises, 2 to 3 exercises for every patient,
Mm-hmm.
if the patient is like feeling like it's a controlled accountability would be like they're doing the exercises because they think I'm going to get upset with them if they don't
Right.
do the exercises versus autonomous accountability would be like they buy into the program
Mm-hmm.
before doing the exercises. So they're doing the exercises because they're seeing some benefit, whether it's an immediate relief of pain or they just trust that my expertise is right and they should listen to it and they should own it and go forward with the exercises. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Different environments and different populations may respond more favorably to either autonomous or controlled accountability interventions. I'm not really sure I can think off the top of my head what or who would benefit from more controlled accountability, but I guess I can't necessarily rule that out either. It just seems like,
Controlled accountability?
yeah,
I mean, that's like what our entire education system
I know, but I don't know that
values.
I don't know that's the best way. Like I don't know that anybody really benefits from that as much as they would autonomous. You know what I mean? Like I just
Oh, for certain. If
right.
you can get yourself to believe that the homework, if a kid can get themselves to believe that the homework is doing them a benefit and helping them reach
Right.
whatever their internal goals are, they're going to do the homework much better than a person like me who is only doing the homework because if I don't do the homework, you're going to fail
Right.
me.
Exactly. Exactly. So some business world research, accountability leads to successful management. So accountability builds trust, knowing that your leader will take responsibility for their decision instills a high level of confidence in team members. Also, when leaders model this type of behavior for the rest of the company, it leads to a broader culture of accountability. Compared with people at low trust companies, people at high trust companies report 74% less stress, 106% more energy at work.
That's wild. That's over double the amount of energy.
I know, it's huge. 50% more or 50% higher productivity.
Lauren, where's the rest of the energy going?
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, Travis. You have like over double the amount of energy, but only 50% higher productivity.
Well, hopefully they're more productive at home with their families and
That's what
it's
I would hope is you have
improving.
more energy for like the other stuff in your day too, which honestly, like, sign me up for that.
Right.
13% fewer sick days, 76% more engagement, 29% more satisfaction with their lives, and 40% less burnout. Holy cow, that's a lot of really great benefits.
A lot of positives.
Yeah. Accountability also strengthens relationships. So, when employees feel like they can have an open two-way dialogue with their company leaders and managers, they're more likely to be engaged in various aspects of the organization, whether that's in the form of sharing feedback or asking questions, which obviously can lead to better business outcomes. Studies have found that organizations with highly engaged employees have an average 3 year revenue growth that is 2.3 times greater than companies with less engaged teams.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
That's 230% more growth in your
it's
revenue.
this is huge. Like, this makes a huge difference for business. It can also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're
Okay.
good.
Accountability can also minimize costly mistakes. When leaders can own up to the mistakes they make, they can more easily find a way to fix the problem and move forward.
Learn one way to be accountable is to solve problems. Successful problem solving reduces maladjustment and enhances positive adjustment as everyday life is replete. Ooh, that's a fancy word. Everyday life is full of problems that must be solved in order to function effectively. Social problem solving is expected to have both a direct and indirect link to positive psychological well-being and functioning. Lauren, I feel good when I solve problems. What
Me
I
too.
don't feel good for is when I give somebody a task. So
Mm.
we've talked on this podcast just in the the beginning about me hiring these VAs, and now I'm hiring a company. One of the reasons I'm hiring a company is because the VAs weren't working out. I had one that was pretty good. Uh, the other ones, it was like I hired somebody to do my website, and I told them what I wanted, and then
Oh,
they asked me how to do it.
oh,
They told me that they knew how to work on websites. I don't know how to work on websites.
oh.
If I'm going to figure out how to do it, I'm just going to do it.
Right. Yeah. Why pay somebody else to do it if
Exactly.
you're
Why am I
just going to
paying
do the
you if I
work?
have to tell you you're actually making this take more time than it could have taken me just to do it? So
Right.
this is vastly different from when I want to get something done because I'm just going to figure it out. Or
Right.
from my experiences with you on this podcast, Lauren, when you took the reins for the video and sound editing, you just figured it out and we rolled forward with the podcast. You never asked me a question. It wasn't like, oh yeah, hey Travis, how do I do the video editing? What program should I use? It's like, I don't know, Lauren. I didn't want to do it. You just took control of the situation, took care of it, and I don't know how the podcast gets edited. It just ends up magically on YouTube one day. And that's how it should be.
Right. Yeah, that's accountability and not you it
And problem
wasn't
solving.
yeah, and it wasn't like I was scared of disappointing you. It was just this is a team partnership and we're going to do the things that we're going to do the way that we decide to do them. Problem
Right.
solved. So in education, Travis kind of was talking about this earlier. Teacher student relations and teacher colleague relations are often affected negatively by increased testing. So, this is an example of controlled accountability. Um, I think this was definitely a contributing factor to why my favorite teacher ended up leaving his job in teaching for another career, probably in conjunction with the low pay. But it's so unfortunate because he was honestly the best teacher I ever had. And I had had him in freshman year of high school and then again in junior year. And I loved him so much from freshman year that I actually dropped out of honors English, much to my parents' dismay, so that I could have him as a teacher because I knew I would learn more from him than I would from the honors English teacher. But he would fight back against this like upward pressure of increasing testing because he wanted us to actually learn stuff, like learn the morals of the books we were reading and not just like memorize authors and names and dates. I like he changed my life. I took so much away from his class because he fought that and he got in, I mean, decent trouble because of it.
Good
And
for him.
yeah, and he left right after my junior year. So, but
Well,
it's unfortunate.
the good news in Arizona, it's unfortunate that he left, and he
Mm-hmm.
probably left teaching for good because
He
that
did.
was not an Arizona thing. That's
Yeah, he
everywhere.
did.
Yeah. The good news, at least for him financially, is that Arizona doesn't pay teachers anything, so it wouldn't be that hard to find a replacement job, at least for the financial, to figure out and then
For
figure out
sure.
what he wanted to do. But that sucks that you
Yeah.
lose a good teacher because you take away all their autonomy.
Yeah, yeah, really unfortunate. Shout out to Mr. MacD. He was great. Research suggests that accountability policies influence teacher student and teacher colleague relationships, especially involving younger teachers. And positive collegial relationships enhance teachers' motivation and efficacy even in a constraining context. I'm assuming here they're talking more about the autonomous accountability, like in a positive environment. The accountability teachers feel may increase innovativeness and responsible teaching. The the benefits of autonomous accountability. Like maybe they could have held on to that teacher that I'm talking about if they just allowed him a little more autonomy.
Right. Maybe judged by the results, not by the quantity of tests.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in healthcare, there are several studies that kind of explain how people respond to accountability in healthcare. And I would think that these are directly attributable across the board. It's going to be similar to the business world. It's a positive response to increased accountability. So studies have indicated that patients are less likely to sue for a medical mistake. We've talked about medical mistakes in the past. We had a whole episode on kind of problems, big glaring deficits in our healthcare systems. Medical errors are the third leading cause of death. They're anywhere from third to fourth in general. In studies, research shows that allowing physicians to offer apologies to patients and their families following errors helps prevent future patients from experiencing similar harm and can reduce malpractice lawsuits by up to 50%.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the studies we looked at had a quote that said, "For decades, hospitals, physicians, and their insurance providers and attorneys have insisted on a deny and defend approach to medical mistakes. What research is making increasingly clear, however, is that when doctors can apologize and explain to patients and their families how they will prevent future patients from being injured by the same error, it not only benefits patients and their families, but future patients too. Studies have also found that lawsuits dramatically decrease."
I mean, that makes so much sense because if you're owning up to the mistake and admitting it to the family, you're taking accountability like this is my fault. Here's what I'm going to do so that I don't make that same mistake again. Like that's
Right.
huge.
Yes. So I make mistakes, Sloan. I'm human.
Same.
Most of my mistakes, generally things that people get sued for are not. I mean, physical therapists don't get sued for much. Don't get sued often. You make a big mistake to get sued in physical therapy, and so my mistakes are pretty little. But I will say one thing: even when my patients haven't taken it well, when I've apologized, it has felt so good to like get it off my chest that I keep doing it. So like the first patient that I can remember apologizing to, I screwed up. I made a scheduling error in home health, and it cost her a visit. And I told her, I was like, it's my fault. I can't really do anything about it. You're at the end of your Medicare timeline. This is how your government health insurance works. It doesn't really allow me to change what it is. It is what it is. Your next step is to go to outpatient physical therapy. And she was really, really upset. And she asked me like 4 times, what happened. I was like, listen, I made a mistake. I told her over and over again. And it didn't really help in that situation with her, but it helped me feel really good about just admitting that I made that mistake. So I've carried it through. Some other research has indicated that 88 to 98% of patients desire or expect an apology if a mistake is made.
It's nearly everyone.
Yeah, you can pretty much generalize to everyone. 40% of patients who did sue reported that if they received an apology, they would not have felt the need to file a suit. That's wild. 20% reported that the courtroom was 20% of patients who did sue reported that the courtroom was the only place where they could find out what happened from the physicians providing care. That's sad.
Oh, that gives me like bad chills.
So that's
Oh,
why, yeah, it did me too. That's why they sued at the end of the day, is because they felt like they had to sue and they had to go to court in order to figure out what the heck happened and why they got such a bad result.
yeah. Oh, that's sad.
So, some better news is that 40% of surgeons who made errors apologized in a singular study. They found that 40%, 47% of the surgeons who made errors apologized for the error. Now, 47% isn't that much, but when you're in a system that has been telling you never to
It's
apologize
more
for a
than I
long
expected.
time, that's probably not bad.
Hmm. Hopefully that only increases.
Yes, hopefully over time. I mean, if for nothing else, to protect the physicians from themselves.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
hopefully they'll adopt that.
right, exactly. So reinforcing positive accountability increases happiness and employee engagement, as we talked about at the very beginning of this episode. So, how to increase accountability? How do you increase accountability in the workplace? Some tips for increasing accountability would be, for one, to define accountability. If you ask a group of 100 employees if they see areas within the business where accountability is needed or more accountability is needed, 100% of them will say yes. But if you ask the same 100 employees if they are personally accountable in the workplace, 100% of them will say yes. Not one in the history of business admits, I'm a train wreck. Don't count on me for much. This happens because we judge other people based on what we see them doing, yet we judge ourselves based on our own intentions. So taking accountability is to follow these 4 steps: see it, own it, solve it, do it. Another tip would be to put employees in the driver's seat. So when accountability is at the heart of an organizational culture, employees are empowered to take ownership for the work that matters instead of fixating on problems that surface from finger pointing and from lack of initiative. Last tip would be align around a common cause. People work hardest for a cause. If every employee truly understands how their role combines with others to bring the mission of the company to life, they'll be much more inclined to give 100% to their jobs, even if they're not particularly passionate about the task at hand.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, some tips on increasing accountability within yourself are to own those things, but also accountability is mostly just being reliable. Be
Mm-hmm.
prepared, set goals, and have clear standards. Communicate a lot to help set expectations. Basically, that means that my wife might have a different idea of what the finishing the job means than I do. So you need to be clear on what those two things are. Like, eh, I finished the job, hun. Well, yeah, but you left you left the window dirty after you replaced the trim or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, those things happen, I'm sure, in everybody's relationship.
Oh, for sure.
So ask questions, make sure you're on the same page. Don't act like you know everything. This is one of those, kind of like the opening that we talked about in society. It's like you're not supposed to act like you don't know everything. Well, you can't know everything.
No, yeah.
It's impossible. Lean on the wisdom of others. Be willing to say that I don't know and then go find out. That was one of the biggest tips we got in sales, in every sales job I ever had. It was never to BS your way through it. It was, say I don't know, but I'll get the answer for you, and
Mm-hmm.
then go get the answer.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most empowering things I've learned in my current job is, I mean, there's a million things I don't know about pediatrics. A million. It's getting less as I continue to learn more, thankfully. But like that was a lot of the beginning of my job is, I don't know. Let me go find out for you.
And you're helping others to have less I don't knows when they start out in
Imagine that.
pediatrics by teaching. Um, Admit when you're wrong. Don't blame others. Own it. Don't make excuses or get defensive. And no matter where you are in life, always strive to have a teacher, a student, and a friend. I'm proud to say that, Lauren, you are all three of those things for me at times.
Oh, you're all three of those for me, Travis. I think like most of the time.
So in conclusion, there's a quote from one of the healthcare articles. It says accountability inherent in the social interaction between a patient and a healthcare provider affects patients' motivation to adhere to treatment. Better use of an accountability figure, particularly a caring healthcare provider, can contribute to cognitive behavioral interventions to improve adherence. This is definitely true. This is one reason that I try and lead by example. Like I always tell people, if I can't imagine being a physical therapist and promoting exercise and being overweight at the same time. Um, because it's like, why would I listen to you tell me that I need to exercise if you are clearly not exercising enough? So I try and lead by example and always do those things to take care of myself so that patients can see, oh yeah, he's taking care of himself. He really believes in this stuff. Maybe I should give it a try. At the end of the day, I am responsible for myself, my actions, my results, and the results of my patients. If my patient doesn't do their exercises, it is my fault. I did not communicate well enough or did not find a way to motivate them to perform their exercises. They don't have the training I do. I have the training I do. So I'm the one with the training and the experience with exercise for pain management or performance enhancement, whatever they're going for. They are not. So if I can't communicate why I'm doing the things that I'm doing and why I'm asking them to do the things that I'm doing, and they don't do it, that's on me, not on them. Lauren, do you have a challenge for this week?
Sorry, I was so engaged by what you were saying.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully other people will be.
Yeah. Yeah, so challenge for this week. Take accountability for the things that matter to you in life. Apologize when you make mistakes and watch your relationships and levels of success change going forward.
Lauren, you did a great job today.
You did a great job, Travis.
Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you next week on another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode and are getting benefits from our content.
If your life is improving in part due to the information in this podcast, we would greatly appreciate you sharing the episode with your family and friends on social media and leaving us a review so we can continue to reach more people and improve the health and happiness of the community at large.
Thanks again, and we will see you next week for another episode of the Health and Happiness Podcast.